Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Let's see if I can dig up my first webinar. First of all, can all of you hear me? There's a little chat box there. I don't honestly know if it's doing anything. Well, let's run with it and see how that goes. So, first of all, this is me, Neil Merton, a consulting copywriter. To stave off the near inevitable questions about why I'm a consulting copywriter and not a copywriting consultant, well, there's three reasons for that. The first one is that Sherlock Holmes was a consulting detective. The second one is that I quite like the way it sounds. And the third one is that I think it's just a better reflection of who I am, because I'm not a consultant who does copywriting. I'm a copywriter who does consulting. I think it fits me a whole lot better. And as far as I know, no one else is using it. So let's get started on this. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, only a few minutes, on what I think is the single best way to improve your conversions. It's not your headline, it's not your testimonials, it's not the lead, it's just the offer. And come on, wake up. And the reason why it's your offer is right there. Your copy determines how big a slice you get, and your offer determines the size of the pie. Now, what I mean by that is that basically, let's say you've got an offer on classic cars. Okay, something like, I don't know, 7 classic cars to restore before you die. Now, it doesn't matter who you get to write that copy. You could get me, you could get John Carlton doing a review of it, you could get Drayton Bird to tidy it up. Whoever you get to do it, I'm not going to buy it just because I'm not interested in restoring classic cars, or classic cars at all for that matter. I've always been someone who's far more interested in how people work rather than how machines work. And it's not better, it's not worse, it's just me. But it means no matter how good your copy is, I'm never going to be part of that target market. And you can say that's quite an extreme example, and you would be right. But it also applies within the sub-niches as well. Everyone on this webinar, for instance, is a pretty safe bet you're all interested in internet marketing, but you're all going to be interested in different bits of it. Some of you are going to like Facebook, some of you are going to like keywords, some of you are going to like blogging. And within that market, some of those sub-niches are always going to be more popular than others. I mean, back when we were releasing the Digi Results plugins, your Digi Article Blaster, Digi Traffic Multiplier, all that kind of thing, there was this kind of joke going around the office where we'd say, when we were talking about product development, we'd say, okay, we'd all get in a room and we'd think, okay, what are people really going to need? What is really going to help them? And we'd brainstorm a bit, we'd think up some really cool ideas, and then we'd just throw them all out and do something on backlinks. And the reason we did that was because back then, that was a couple of years ago, backlinks were the single most popular thing you could make a product on. I mean, now not so much. That, like I say, that was a couple of years ago, and you've had Penguin and Panther and all that. Backlinks are kind of out of fashion. But at that point, you could have kind of the world's greatest keyword tool with the world's best sales copy, and it would struggle to convert as well as something that built 50 automatic backlinks and with a sales page that just read backlinks, 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 buy. Just because there were just so many more people interested in buying them. Now, one thing I should make clear here when I talk about what the product does in terms of backlinks, keywords, similar, I don't really mean the specific features, in terms of the actual number of backlinks it builds or exactly how fast it finds your keywords. I'm talking in far more broad, a far more broad scope. So a backlinks product at that point would always convert better than a keywords product. I mean, right now, Facebook seems to be quite popular, so maybe that's a better thing to think about right now. But between backlinks and keywords, within those, the individual features didn't matter that much. The decision you made to make a backlinks product rather than a keyword product boosted your conversions by something like 5%. and exactly what it did within that, not quite so much. Now, of course, there's other things beyond just what the product does as part of the offer. There's, like I have on here, how much you charge, the kind of licenses you put with it to see how it looks, see the kind of other offers people are getting, the kind of event put around it. Just have some water. And so what I want to talk about first of all is developing an awesome offer from a blank canvas. And I know there's going to be a lot of people here thinking, but wait a minute, I've already dropped $3,000 developing WP Pet Rock, and I want to know how to make that offer look good. And that's okay, we are going to get to that. But first of all, let's talk about it, straight from the start, how you should go into the product development part. So, no, wrong slide. Man, I'm awesome at this. So here we are, new products. Now, one thing that you should make very clear, there should be no distinction in your mind between product development and marketing. Okay, it is all part of the same thing. And so that means when you are developing a product, when you've come up with the idea, you've got to find whoever's going to be in charge of selling it. And that could be a copywriter you hire, it could be someone on your team, anyone, but whoever it is, get them in early. You start with an idea, it doesn't have to be hugely well formed, but you just need an outline of what it's going to do, the USPs. At that point, you go find the guy who's going to sell it. Don't find the guy who's going to write it. Don't find the guy who's going to code it. Find the guy who is going to sell it. And this is the point where you want to set them to work. Now, the reason for this is that any copywriter worth their salt is going to be able to look at your offer, or the outline of your product, the USPs, and they are going to be able to see roughly how they would go about selling it, and they'll be able to start working on the letter from that. And you will find some people who think it's really important to have the product in front of them before you start doing the selling. It's not really, and in fact, I find it a bit of a detriment. And I mean, it's useful, sure. If I'm selling a bit of software, I will always ask for a copy from the product vendor. But to be honest, barely any fucker ever gives it to me. It's not that they don't want to; they're just forgetful, and that's fine. But it means I'm still going on the same things as I would be if the software didn't exist. I've had a conversation with the product vendor, I've asked them a load of questions, they've answered my questions, and I am writing a letter based on that. Your copywriter, whether or not your product's actually developed, will be able to do the same thing. And if your product isn't developed yet, or if it's in the process of being developed, then when your copywriter is writing the letter, going through their sales argument, when they think, as they're pretty much bound to, that it'd be a really easy sell, it'd make so many more conversions if it happened to come in purple or something, then you can say, if you've already got the software built, then there's not really much you can do about that. If it's still in development and the copywriter says, if this came in purple, then you could add another 3% to the conversions, at that point you can get on the phone to the developer and tell them, this thing, you will make it come in purple. And you can develop the offer as the marketing is being written. Now, this is I'd say a little bit different with info products in that it really does help an awful lot more to have at least the first draft of the info product. As a copywriter, I can tell you it's a whole lot easier to have the first draft in front of you, but it still shouldn't necessarily be the final one. I mean, as an example, some of you will know that a few months ago, 5, I think, anyway, it was back in April, I did a small info product called 7 Emails You Can Use to Sell Anything. And that was basically the affiliate templates I put together, for single shot affiliate emails. When I was developing that product, first thing I came up with, the useful thing that was going to be really useful to people, those 7 templates. Then thinking about it, instead flipped to kind of the sales hat, the marketing hat, instead of the product development one, and thought, okay, what are people going to want? what is going to make them buy when I'm trying to sell them these 7 templates? I thought, okay, they are going to want examples because everyone always wants examples. So fine, you stick examples on your product development thing. The book ended up having examples of the different emails in there, and I thought they're probably going to want a bit of email training in there, so I threw that in there as well. And then I came to write the first draft of the letter, and I wanted a load of curiosity bullets. And so I was starting to think of metaphors for things I'd already in the book. So I wrote bullets about Isaac Newton and tigers, all the kinds of stuff that you read on the page, and it excites the curiosity. You want to know what is in the book because of what the bullet is saying. And now Isaac Newton and tigers weren't in the book at that point, but I could go back and I could put them in because I know that would help sell it. So consider it as an iterative process. Work out an idea, work out how to sell it, develop the product so it becomes the thing you can sell. And that is pretty much what I've got on those last 2 bullets there. What you should not do is build a product and work out how to sell it. What you should do is work out what sells and then build that. That is not only going to make your copywriter's life a whole lot easier, pretty much regardless of who you hire or who you use, it's going to up your conversions by a very significant factor. And, that means more money, which is what everyone wants. So moving on, let's assume you have already got WP Pet Rock and you want to work out how to make the offer for WP Pet Rock as attractive as it can be. That is where we come into frame, family, and friends. The frame is the kind of offer you're making, family of how many people is it good for, and the friends, what are all their mates getting? So we'll just run through these quickly and then throw the floor open to some questions. The frame, what kind of offer are you making? Now, by this, I mean an awful lot of people, when they are writing their letters and trying to sell the product, they will sell what the product does. They won't sell the benefit it gets. That is narrowing down the market an awful lot. As a for instance, say you have a product on content curation, a plugin that does it automatically or something. There's a fair few of those out there now. Now, trying to sell it on the basis that this thing will do content curation for you will not be as effective as selling it on the basis that it can deliver a load of traffic for you. There are far more people interested in traffic than there are interested in content curation. You've got to think feature and benefit. Don't sell the feature, don't sell what the product does, sell the benefit, what it gets. When you do that, you're going to open your offer up to a whole lot more people. Far more of them are going to be interested in it. Far more of them are going to read your letter. Far more of them are going to buy. Now, moving on to the family part, how many people is it good for? This is very closely related to the top one in that when you widen the scope out from you had your content curation offer, you've turned it into a traffic offer. When you do this, you're going to include an awful lot of newbies, shall we say, in the mix. Not necessarily people who are new to marketing or people who are new to traffic, but people who are new to the content curation part. People who aren't sure if this is the particular thing that they want to get into. They like the idea of traffic, but the fact it's done this way, they're a little bit dodgy about that. So what you've got to do here is give them confidence. And again, you can do this with your copy, but one of the most effective ways is to do it with your offer, and specifically with your bonuses. Because in this case, when you have your content curation offer, you've turned it into a traffic offer, you've got a load of newbies in there, think, what are they going to want? What is going to give them confidence? Easy way to do that is just make one of your bonuses a quick info product or a quick report, which is basically content curation for dummies. It gives them ownership of the idea. It lets them think, yes, I can do this. I want the traffic. I can do it the way this thing says. And again, that opens your offer up to a whole lot more people. It will make your conversions an awful lot higher. And all you need is the bonus to do that. That's an extra, 200, maybe $300 to an article writer. And it could make you, several thousands in the sales. And finally, the friends. What offer are their mates getting? How is this offer, in fact, better value than what the mates are getting? Now, there's a couple of different ways you can play with your offer here to make your conversions bigger. One is to use a sensible license structure. The one I've always liked for this is the basic, middle, and luxury options. This is actually fairly common, or at least it used to be, having for a plugin a single multi-site and developer license on the front end. We've flipped into kind of having the developer on the upsell now, which I don't like so much, but whatever. When you use this kind of 3-tier pricing, so single multi-site developer, you make the middle one the one you want them to buy. With an offer like this, if you make the middle one, which is multi-site, is clearly more attractive. If you make that one only slightly more expensive than the basic one, the single site, you're going to get far more people take the middle offer. And if you make the luxury one, which in this case is the developer one, if you make that far more expensive, so I mean the pricing we always use was 27, 37, 97. You don't have to use those numbers, but it should be, start low, increase a little bit, then increase a lot. When you use that kind of price structure, then people will see the multi-site one, so in our case the 37, in relation to the far more expensive 97 version, and that works. It works very well as perceived value. Again, you'll get far more people, not only buy the multi-site version, you'll get far more people buy at all, just because the offer looks that much better. The other thing you can do with your offer here is the perceived value part. Now, a lot of people will say that their product is worth, I don't know, they'll say it's worth $297. That's pretty weak. What is stronger is actually showing it's worth $297. You can say, this is the launch event in a week, then we are going to be up in the price $297. That's better. What's even better still is saying that actually it's already available for $297. You can see where it's available for $297 because I'm going to show you the website. Here's the link to it. Then they can click that link. They can go to the other website, which can be exactly the same page, but with a higher price point on the button. And they will see that they're getting, they're seeing the special page, they're seeing the special offer. The general public, all the hoi polloi, they're seeing the offer that's for $300. They're getting a massive discount. That makes it worth a lot of money. That is not just you saying it's worth $297. That is actually being sold for $297. It makes the offer far more attractive. And so that is a fairly basic but very effective way of increasing the conversions on, I think, pretty much anything I can think of. And let's say, you don't actually have to change any copy to do it. All you need to do is set up another site, stick a high price point on the button, and direct people to it. Don't need to worry about traffic being lost because they're just going to a sales page with a high price point. They're either going to buy or they're going to come back. Either way is good for you. So that is it. Like I said, it was a fairly brief presentation, sitting here on about 20 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? That doesn't look like it. Excellent. Well, I hope you found it useful. And I'll be on Skype very shortly. You can tell me how rubbish I am as a presenter, and seriously, do tell me how rubbish I am as a presenter because I do quite want to learn this. Like I say, it's the first one I've done. So, thanks for being here, and I will see you in a sec.